I sold myself for one night, but what happened next changed everything. The neon bar sign flickered outside the rain-streaked window, casting a sickly glow over the half-empty glasses and crumpled napkins. Lena Carter wiped down the counter with more force than necessary, her fingers sticky with spilled gin and the remnants of someone's lipstick. Another Friday night, another shift that left her knuckles raw and her pride frayed. She glanced at the clock. 1:47 a.m. The last stragglers had stumbled out an hour ago, but Mason Reed, her boss, the owner of the Velvet Hour, still sat at his usual corner table, nursing a whiskey as if he had all the time in the world. Lena knew better. Mason never did anything without a reason. "You're still here." His voice cut through the quiet, smooth and deliberate. She didn't look up. "Someone has to close." A low chuckle. "And here I thought you'd be rushing home to work on your masterpieces." Her jaw tightened. He knew exactly how to dig under her skin. She'd made the mistake of showing him her sketchbook once. Charcoal smudges of cityscapes and half-finished portraits, back when she still believed he might see her as something more than just another employee. Now, she kept her art to herself. Mason stood, his tailored suit untouched by the grime of the bar, and slid onto a stool in front of her. Up close, he smelled like expensive cologne and something darker, sharper. Like ink and secrets. "You're wasted here, Lena." She snorted. "Yeah, well, rent doesn't pay itself." He tilted his head, studying her the way he might examine a ledger. Calculating. "What if I told you there's another way?" She finally met his gaze. His eyes were the kind of blue that looked black in the dim light. "I'd say you're full of shit." Another laugh, this one quieter. More dangerous. He reached into his jacket and pulled out an envelope, sliding it across the counter. Lena didn't touch it. "Open it," he said. She hesitated, then flipped it open. Inside was a stack of bills, enough to cover 3 months of rent. Her pulse jumped. "What's the catch?" Mason leaned in, his voice dropping to a murmur. "One night. 2 men. Discreet, professional. They're admirers of mine. And they'd like to get to know you." Her stomach lurched. She should have thrown the money in his face. Should have walked out right then. But she didn't. Instead, she heard herself ask, "Who are they?" Mason's smirk deepened. "Daniel and Asher. Associates of mine. They're very particular about who they spend time with." She swallowed hard. The envelope sat between them like a dare. "Why me?" His gaze flicked over her, not leering but assessing. Like she was a puzzle he'd already solved. "Because you're smarter than you look, and because I think you'd enjoy it." The worst part, he wasn't wrong. A slow breath in. Out. Lena closed the envelope. "I'll think about it." Mason's smile was razor-thin. "Don't think too long." Key improvements. Slower reveal. The offer unfolds through dialogue and tension, not exposition. Lena's depth, her pride, artistic ambition, and financial strain make her choice more layered. Mason's manipulation. He's not just a facilitator, he's playing her, and she knows it. The envelope sat on Lena's kitchen table like a live wire. She hadn't slept. Dawn bled through the thin curtains of her studio apartment, painting the walls in streaks of pale gold. The money, asterisk so much money asterisk, spilled out across the chipped wood surface. Crisp bills fanned out like a hand of cards. 3 months' rent. Maybe 4 if she stretched it. Lena dragged her fingers through her hair, nails scraping against her scalp. She should feel disgusted. Should feel something other than this gnawing, restless curiosity. But Mason's words looped in her head. "You'd enjoy it." A bitter laugh escaped her. She'd spent the last year serving drinks to men who looked right through her, scraping together pennies for art supplies she never had time to use. And now this. A single night, one night, and she could buy herself time. Real time. Not just to paint, but to breathe. Her phone buzzed. A text from her sister, Emily. "You still coming to Mom's birthday thing on Sunday?" Lena's throat tightened. She'd almost forgotten. Her mother's hopeful voice echoed in her memory. Asterisk, when are you going to get a real job, sweetheart? Asterisk. And suddenly, the envelope looked less like a choice and more like an escape. She typed back, wouldn't miss it, and tossed her phone onto the couch. Noon. Lena stood outside Marchetti's, the boutique Mason had told her to visit. The display window showcased a single dress, silk, black, backless, draped over a faceless mannequin. It was the kind of thing she'd never let herself want. The bell jingled as she stepped inside. A woman with silver-streaked hair and a measuring tape around her neck glanced up. "Ah," she said, smiling like Lena was expected. "You must be Mason's friend." Lena stiffened. "He called. Oh, years ago." The woman, Sophia *, according to the name tag, waved a hand. "He has particular tastes. Come." She led Lena to a private room in the back, with a dress from the window already hung waiting. "Try it on," Sophia said. Lena hesitated. "I didn't say yes yet." Sophia arched a brow. "Did you say no?" The silence stretched. Lena reached for the zipper. The fabric slithered over her skin like water. She barely recognized herself in the mirror. The dress clung to her hips, dipped low between her shoulder blades, made her look like someone who belonged in a penthouse, not a walk-up with peeling paint. Sophia hummed approvingly. Mason was right. You're perfect for them. Them, Daniel and Asher. The names felt heavy in her mind, faceless shadows waiting in the wings. "Who are they?" Lena asked, turning to study her profile. Sophia adjusted a strap. "Important. That's not an answer. It's the only one you'll get." The older woman met her gaze in the mirror. "But I'll tell you this. They're not like Mason's usual clients. They're particular. They'll treat you well." Lena snorted. "I'm sure." Sophia's hand stilled. "You think this is just about sex?" A beat. Lena's pulse jumped. "Isn't it? For them." Sophia smiled, cryptic. "It's about you." 8:47 p.m. Lena paced her apartment, the dress folded neatly in its box. She'd spent the afternoon researching Daniel and Asher like some kind of amateur detective, but all she'd found were vague corporate headshots. Daniel, sharp-jawed and grinning. Asher, unsmiling, eyes like flint, and a handful of society page mentions. Old money. Private. Her phone buzzed again. Mason. They're expecting you tomorrow. 9 p.m. The Belmont Hotel, Suite 42. She didn't reply. Instead, she pulled out her sketchbook and flipped to a blank page. Her charcoal hovered over the paper, but all she could think about was the dress. The money. The way Sophia had said it's about you like it was a warning. Her hand moved almost on its own, sketching not a cityscape or a portrait, but a key. One night, she thought. Just one. Then why did it feel like she was about to unlock something she couldn't close again? The Belmont Hotel loomed before her, a monolith of glass and steel reflecting the bruised twilight sky. Lena stood across the street, her fingers clenched around the strap of her bag, the weight of the dress inside pressing against her thigh like a secret. She had spent the day in a haze, painting furiously, then scrubbing the charcoal from her hands until her skin burned. She canceled plans with Emily, lied about a sudden deadline, and ignored 3 more texts from Mason. You can still walk away. But the envelope of cash sat heavy in her drawer, and the thought of returning it, of going back to the bar, to the endless cycle of rent and exhaustion, made her stomach twist. A sleek black town car pulled up to the hotel's entrance. Her breath hitched. This is it. 8:53 p.m. The elevator ride to the 42nd floor was silent, save for the hum of machinery and the too loud rhythm of her own pulse. Lena adjusted the thin strap of the dress. Sophia had been right. It fit like it was made for her and tried to steady her breathing. The doors slid open. Suite 42 wasn't a hotel room. It was a space, all low lighting and modern furniture, floor-to-ceiling windows offering a panoramic view of the city below. The air smelled faintly of sandalwood and something darker, spiced. 2 figures stood near the window, their backs to her. The taller one, Daniel turned first. He was even more striking in person, his tailored suit emphasizing broad shoulders, his dark hair slightly tousled as if he'd been running his hands through it. His gaze swept over her, slow, appreciative. "Lena!" His voice was smooth, edged with warmth. "You came." The second man, Asher, didn't turn immediately. He kept his eyes on the skyline, his profile sharp in the dim light. When he finally looked at her, his expression was unreadable. "You're nervous," he observed. Not a question. Lena lifted her chin. "Wouldn't you be?" A flicker of something, amusement, passed over Asher's face. "Yes." Daniel stepped forward, closing the distance between them. He didn't touch her, but his presence was overwhelming, his body heat radiating against her bare skin. "Would you like a drink?" She should have said yes, something to dull the edge of her nerves, but she found herself shaking her head. "I'd rather not." Daniel's lips curved. "Good." Asher moved then, circling her with deliberate, measured steps. His scrutiny was unnerving, like he could see straight through the dress, through her skin, down to the marrow of her. "Why did you say yes to this?" he asked. The question caught her off guard. She'd expected commands, not curiosity. "The money," she said automatically. Asher's gaze didn't waver. "Try again." Lena exhaled sharply. The truth hovered on her tongue, dangerous and raw. Asterisk, because I wanted to feel something. Because I'm tired of being invisible. Asterisk. Daniel reached out, his fingertips brushing the inside of her wrist. The contact sent a jolt through her. "You don't have to lie to us," he murmured. She swallowed. "What do you want from me?" Asher's voice was quiet, deliberate. "Tonight, everything." 10:18 p.m. The first touch was electric. Daniel's hands were skilled, tracing the curve of her waist, the dip of her spine, as if memorizing her. Asher watched from the armchair, his gaze heavy, his fingers steepled under his chin. "You're holding back," Daniel murmured against her throat. Lena shivered. "I don't know what you want." "Yes, you do." His teeth grazed her collarbone. "You've known since you walked in." Asher stood, finally joining them. He didn't rush, didn't crowd her, just slid a hand into her hair, tilting her face up to his. "Tell me to stop," he challenged. She didn't. His kiss was relentless, demanding, and when Daniel's mouth found the sensitive spot behind her ear, Lena gasped, her fingers tangling in Asher's shirt. The room spun. The city lights blurred. And for the first time in years, Lena stopped thinking. The first light of dawn crept through the curtains like an uninvited guest. Lena stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of the Belmont suite, wrapped in a robe that smelled faintly of Daniel's cologne, sandalwood and something darker spiced. The city below was just beginning to stir, the streets still slick with last night's rain, the early morning commuters, nothing more than shadows moving through the gloom. She should have left hours ago. Behind her, the bed creaked as Daniel shifted. She didn't turn around, but she could feel his gaze on her, heavy with sleep and something else, something that made the fine hairs on the back of her neck stand up. "You're still here." His voice was rough with sleep, the words more an observation than a question. Lena tightened the robe around her waist. "I didn't have a ride." A low chuckle. "Liar." She turned then, leaning back against the cool glass. Daniel was propped up on one elbow, the sheets pulled around his waist, his bare chest a landscape of muscle and ink. He looked like something out of a Renaissance painting, all golden skin and lazy arrogance, his dark hair mussed from sleep. Asher's side of the bed was empty, the sheets untouched. "He left," Daniel said, following her gaze. "Business." Lena arched a brow. "At 5 a.m. His business keeps odd hours." Daniel stretched, the movement deliberate, showcasing the play of muscle beneath his skin. "Come back to bed." It would be so easy to say yes, to let him pull her under the covers and lose herself in the heat of his body, in the way he looked at her, like she was something precious, something his. But the envelope of cash still sat heavy in her bag, and the memory of Asher's words, asterisk tomorrow asterisk, echoed in her skull like a warning. "Why me?" The question slipped out before she could stop it. Daniel stilled. "What?" "You could have anyone." She gestured to the suite, to the city beyond the glass. "Models, actresses, women who actually want this kind of arrangement." "So why?" "Because you don't." The answer surprised her. Daniel sat up fully now, the sheets falling away. "You think this is about sex?" He shook his head. "It's not. It's about power. About wanting. And you, Lena Carter." He swung his legs over the side of the bed, standing in one fluid motion. "You want, but you hate yourself for it." He crossed the room in 3 strides, stopping just inches from her. The heat of his body was intoxicating, the scent of him, sweat and sex and that damn cologne, making her head spin. "That's what makes you interesting," he murmured, his breath warm against her temple. "That's why Asher can't stop thinking about you. And that's why," His fingers brushed the collar of the robe, teasing it open. "You're going to see us again." Lena's breath hitched. "That's not an answer." Daniel's lips curved. "It's the only one you'll get." 6:23 a.m. The shower was running when Lena finally left. She dressed quickly, her fingers fumbling with the buttons of her blouse, her mind still reeling from Daniel's words. The envelope of cash sat untouched on the dresser. She hadn't been able to bring herself to take it. The elevator ride down was silent, the mirrored walls reflecting a version of herself she barely recognized. Cheeks flushed, lips still swollen from Daniel's kisses, her eyes dark with something that looked dangerously like hunger. Her phone buzzed as she stepped into the lobby. A text from an unknown number. "Tonight, 8 p.m. The address will be sent at 7. No signature. None needed." Lena stared at the screen, her thumb hovering over the delete button. She should block the number, should go home and burn the damn dress and pretend last night never happened. Instead, she tucked the phone into her pocket and stepped out into the dawn. The text came at exactly 7 p.m. Lena stared at her phone, the address glowing ominously against the darkened screen. Not a hotel this time, but a private residence, an upscale townhouse in the kind of neighborhood she could never afford. Her fingers trembled as she set the phone down. "You don't have to go." But she already knew she would. #####, 8:03 p.m. The townhouse was a sleek, modern structure tucked behind wrought iron gates. No doorman, no visible security, just a keypad and a single camera angled above the door. Lena hesitated, her finger hovering over the buzzer. The door swung open before she could press it. Asher stood in the entryway, backlit by the warm glow of the foyer. He was dressed casually, black slacks, a fitted gray sweater that clung to his shoulders, but there was nothing relaxed about the way he held himself. His gaze raked over her, slow and assessing. "You're late." She lifted her chin. "I didn't realize there was a schedule." A flicker of amusement crossed his face. "There's always a schedule." He stepped aside, gesturing for her to enter. The air inside was thick with the scent of leather and something richer, spicier, like aged whiskey or expensive cigars. Lena stepped over the threshold. The door clicked shut behind her. ####, 8:17 p.m. Daniel was in the living room, sprawled across a low leather sofa with a glass of bourbon in one hand. He looked up as they entered, his lips curving into a lazy smile. "Took you long enough." Lena crossed her arms. "What is this?" Daniel exchanged a glance with Asher. "This," he said, setting his glass down, "is where we stop playing games." Asher moved to the sideboard, pouring a second glass of bourbon. He held it out to her. Lena didn't take it. "You said no money this time," she said. "So what do you want?" Asher's gaze didn't waver. "The truth." "About what?" "About why you're really here." The silence stretched, taut as a wire. Lena exhaled sharply. "You already know why." "Do we?" Daniel rose from the sofa, closing the distance between them. His fingers brushed her wrist, light as a whisper. "Because I think you're lying to yourself." She jerked her hand away. "Enough riddles. If you have something to say, say it." Asher set the glass down with a quiet click. "Mason Reed is a problem." The name sent a chill down her spine. "What?" "He's been using women like you for years," Asher continued, his voice low and deliberate. "Luring them in with money, then blackmailing them with footage of their encounters." Lena's stomach twisted. "You're lying." Daniel's expression darkened. "We wish we were." Asher pulled a sleek silver drive from his pocket and tossed it onto the coffee table. "See for yourself." Lena stared at it, her pulse roaring in her ears. Footage. Of her. Of them. Her hands clenched into fists. "You knew." "We suspected," Asher corrected. "Now we know." Daniel's voice was softer now, edged with something like regret. "We wanted to warn you, but we needed to be sure you weren't working with him." Lena laughed, the sound brittle. "So this was all just some kind of test?" "No." Asher's gaze burned into hers. "This was a choice." "For what?" "For revenge." ####, 9:42 p.m. The plan was simple. Mason would be at the Velvet Hour tonight, expecting Lena to return, to beg for another job, another night with his associates. Instead, She'd walk in with Asher and Daniel at her back. Instead, they'd destroy him. Lena sat on the edge of the sofa, her hand steady for the first time all night. The bourbon glass was cold in her grip, the liquid inside untouched. "You don't have to do this," Daniel said quietly. She met his gaze. "Yes, I do." Asher nodded, his expression unreadable. "Then we'll finish it together." Lena stood, setting the glass down. "Let's go." #11:08 p.m. The Velvet Hour was nearly empty when they arrived. Mason sat at his usual corner table, a smirk already curling his lips as Lena approached. "Back so soon?" His gaze flicked past her to Asher and Daniel, his smirk faltering. "And you brought friends?" Lena didn't smile. "We need to talk." Mason leaned back, his fingers steepling. "About what?" She slid the silver drive across the table. "About this." His face went pale. By midnight, the police would arrive. By morning, Mason Reed would be in custody. And Lena, she'd be free. #epilogue. 3 weeks later. The envelope arrived on a Tuesday. No return address, no note, just a key and an address scrawled on crisp white paper. Lena turned the key over in her palm, her heart pounding. She knew what it was. A choice. Just like before. This time, she didn't hesitate.